where was I think it was one of the AFWA committee meetings, and I heard this presentation from Peter Novotny, and I was just blown away. Peter, I'm setting you up here. And I was like, that's who we need to talk about this increase in shooting participation, what some of the considerations should be for agencies and others as we see this increase and shift in demographics and exciting new times as far as participation goes. So Peter's going to jump in here and live up to the praise that I just gave him and deliver an excellent presentation with some awesome insights. So Peter, are you ready to take it away?
I am. Thank you for the kind words, Swanee. Yeah, my name is Peter Novotny. I'm the Assistant Chief of the Ohio Division of Wildlife. And I'm going to follow up with all these great presentations with something that we're doing here in Ohio, which is responding to this diversification of recreational shooters. And it really started in Ohio in 2016 when I was at a senior level meeting. And we were discussing, where do we go with our ranges? And our wildlife biologist supervisor, he got up in front of the room and he said, we should bulldoze them down. This isn't what we need to be doing. We need to create habitat for more wildlife, and that will be what hunters want. And that was a really tough moment for us as an agency as we were struggling with this range system. And we have 5 man ranges in Ohio. They were built in the 50s and 60s. They're out in rural areas, rustic to say the least. You're talking about, we have staff for basically just for safety reasons, and everything from porta potties to that's it, just the range. Well, we started to take some looking at how do we make this decision of where as an agency we want to go to engage recreational shooters. And it's hard not, it has to start at the North American conservation model. For so long, state agencies have looked at this model, said, hunters and anglers are the ones that are paying into the system. So that is who we should serve. And they do it by this excise tax. And over the years, I think that's a story that we've told ourselves. And when you look at the data, look at the staggering numbers of who is actually who is paying into the system. It's not just hunters and anglers. In 2021, the Wildlife Sport, Fish, and Restoration Act will provide $1 billion to state fish and wildlife agencies. That's a $120 million increase from 2019. And it's basically fueled by, partially fueled by the sale of archery, firearms, and ammunition. So basically $2.7 million a day from this act are going into wildlife conservation in the United States. So in Ohio, we had these 5 range systems, and we have a permit system where to visit our range, you either have to have a 1-day permit or an annual. And so we started looking at who's using our ranges. We had 58,000 visitors back in 2016. And the 1-day permit was kind of our aha moment. We found that 52% of our visitors that are buying a range pass for 1 day were Generation Y millennials. And of those, 30% were female. However, when we looked at the annual permit, it reflected back to what our hunting license participation is. So we started asking the question why. So we did a survey, and what we found is that we got them from one time because our ranges really sucked. They were out in the middle of nowhere. They were not destination areas, very rustic. And then we asked, what do you want? We asked our customers, what do you want? They wanted Wi-Fi. They wanted classrooms. They wanted staffed, and they wanted safe. And so from there, we decided to put $20 million in Ohio in our range system. And this includes building 2 large facilities within 45 minutes of urbanized centers. And we just opened these up in fall of 2020. Within the first 3 months at our Spring Valley range, we had 5,000 shooters, and they shot 300,000 rounds had went down range. And I'm not going to apologize on behalf of all the Ohioans for shooting all your ammo that you can't buy in your state, but they're definitely shooting it here in Ohio. We realize that it's not enough to just simply build it and expect that the people are going to come. So we partnered with Sovereign Sportsman Solutions, S3, and we're going to implement a customer relationship management system and an automated marketing platform to better understand our customers and connect with them. I'd like to thank Ben Page. I think he's on here, and his team from S3. They're helping us create this messaging to invite more shooters to our ranges, as well as drive them to purchase license and permits. What this all comes down to is relevancy. Relevancy for our wildlife agency can be achieved through investment in shooting ranges. There's previous presenters have shared these staggering numbers, and I have to say them again. 21 million gun background checks were conducted in 2020. That's a 60% increase from 2019. It's a 35% increase from a previous record, which was in 2016. More importantly, there's 8.4 million first-time gun buyers. 40% of all gun purchases were first-time buyers. Demographics, 40% were female. And the biggest increase was African Americans who bought guns at a rate that were 58% higher than 2019. Gun owners want a safe and environmentally friendly place to go shoot. They need us as state wildlife agencies to provide that to them. They want programming. This fits into the R3 model. I'm kind of unique in the state agency where I did not grow up in a household with guns, and I had to rely on somebody to take me under their wing, so to speak, to teach me. And I feel that's the opportunity that we have in front of us, is building these ranges now gives us the opportunity to engage a new customer. I guess in Ohio, we did fire up our bulldozers. And instead of leveling them, we decided to build them. And what I would like to do is just to share a short video from a good friend of ours, Corey Tucker, who's a influencer that has been working with us. And I hope that it kind of tells the story of what we're trying to achieve here in Ohio.
How you guys doing? Corey Tucker here, creative singer-songwriter and outdoor adventurist. I grew up down the way in Cincinnati, Ohio. I'm an OSU alum, and today's adventure, we're at Spring Valley Shooting Range. You're probably thinking, I didn't know we had a shooting range in Greene County. Well, we do. Or maybe you're thinking, I want to learn more about shooting, or how do I get into shooting? Well, I'm going to share my journey with you, but before we get into any of that, I want to show you the range. Let's go. Spring Valley Shooting Range is located about an hour southwest of Columbus and about 45 minutes northeast of Cincinnati. It is situated perfectly for communities in Cincinnati, Columbus, and Dayton. Spring Valley recently underwent a $5.5 million expansion, including these new areas: an upgraded backstops, 65 rifle shooting stations, new entrance and parking lot, restroom facilities, a range master building, outdoor education center, and a static archery range. One of my personal favorites is the renovated shotgun range featuring target launchers and designated shooting locations. Another notable mention is a wooded walk-through archery course with 18 targets and 3 towers. So right now we're in the archery wooded walk, and it's simply gorgeous out here. And this reminds me of, as a kid, going on spring break or summer vacation, and I've packed a bag and I'm headed to the woods, or I'm headed to hang out with friends and go creeking or something crazy like that. And back then I took this Army green buck knife, and that was my security, that was my protection. Yeah, I was always interested in guns as a boy, but in my house we didn't have guns, we didn't believe in guns, and I didn't know anyone with guns. But as an adult male, I was interested in guns, and I wanted to make sure that I knew how to handle one. So I went to get my CCW, and I didn't tell anyone about it. I kept it a secret. And over a period of time, I began to share that information with my family, in particular my father. And he would ask me questions every time I would see him. How's the gun? And are you shooting? You practicing? And a couple years goes by, and he eventually goes to get his CCW. So we would go shoot once a month. We'd go shooting at a range, and he'd bring different guns with him, and I would practice with those, and I let him shoot mine, and we got pretty comfortable shooting guns together. And we owe a lot of that comfortability to shooting at a range, being comfortable with a handgun in a range like this. I think that's what I love about what Ohio Department of Natural Resources is doing, Division of Wildlife is doing, is that they're including shooting into their umbrella. They're making these nice facilities where advanced and beginner shooters can come and get proficient. So if you're thinking about, can this impact your community? It can impact not only your community, I think it can impact the people around us. It can impact your family and your friends. And I think it can do things that we don't even think about for the public at large. Man, this was a blast being out here just shooting in this natural habitat here. I think one of the things I really enjoyed today was the staff taking time out of their work schedule to just spend some time with me and brush up on some skills and then teach me some new stuff as well. I also like the fact that Ohio Department of Natural Resources is making this space for shooters. They're including us in their overall umbrella. This could be a great opportunity for you to connect with your own family, your own community. So until our next adventure, peace and love. Well, that wraps up our time. Feel free to visit Spring Valley Shooting Range. They are super helpful. For more information, visit ohiodnr.gov. And we'll see you next time. Peace and love.
So thank you. It goes to relevancy and how we engage with the public. Having these facilities are important. It's showing recreational shooters that they are part of the wildlife conservation model. So thank you, Swanee, for the invite, and it's been a great. It's a fun experience. It's a fun time here in Ohio.
Thanks, Peter. I always enjoy it when you jump up there and talk. It was a great talk. I'm looking forward to going to Ohio and trying out some shooting ranges. So we're going to take what Peter just talked about some considerations with the ranges, some updates, and we're going to look at a foundation that could potentially help fund some of that. They're starting to include that 10% match into one of their grant processes. But we're going to get an overall look at Midway USA Foundation. We've got Scott Reynolds, who's the executive director, going to jump on board with us and tell us a little bit more about it, and then we'll circle back for some questions.
Well, thanks for having me, and hello to everybody. Again, that's why I said I'm Scott Reynolds. I'm the executive director of the Midway USA Foundation. So right off the bat, who we are and who we're not. I'm sure everyone's heard of Midway USA, the online retailer that sells all sorts of outdoor stuff. We are not them. Have nothing to do with them, totally separate entity. We're a 501c3 nonprofit that's focused on funding youth shooting sports. The name relationship comes from our founder, Larry and Brenda Potterfield, who also founded Midway USA, the retailer. And but that's as close as it gets. I get several calls a day on a week on trying to track down lost orders or something of that nature, or pricing, and I can't help you with that. But I can help you fund your youth shooting teams and a couple of other special grant programs we have in place. So you'll start to see us more. We've kind of been just kind of coasting along here, helping teams as we find them, but we're going to be a little bit more aggressive. So you'll start seeing Midway USA Foundation out in the industry a little bit more going forward. I've been here since June of 2019, and I've got a staff of 15 amazing, highly educated, highly motivated individuals that believe in everything that we do here. And we'll go through from a very high level some of the items, or at least our main purpose, what we do, and then get into some special purpose grants. I will point out before I forget, before I go on, there's been some good organizations on here, good presentations that do good things in the industry. And while some of those things may be outside our mission statement, our website we've developed into kind of a resource for the shooting industry, not just folks that are wanting to fund youth shooting teams, but to do other things within the industry. If anybody wants to be included on our resources page, their organization, by all means, send me a link and what you do and all that sort of thing, and we'll see about getting it on there. We have a lot of visitors that go to the page just to find answers to questions, and so maybe your organization is one of those answers. So anyway, Midway USA organization, excuse me, MidwayUSAFoundation.org is the address. So what do we do? So I won't read this to you, you can see it yourself, but bottom line is we help raise funds for youth shooting teams and activities. So teams that are out there that need money, we help them raise the funds and fund them into perpetuity. And we do that through an endowment program, which I'll talk about in just a moment. But our purpose is to perpetuate youth shooting sports. And through that, we're helping the young people improve their confidence, their discipline, and their leadership skills. And we lead with that purpose. We believe here that we're helping develop better citizens, we're developing character, and we do that through youth shooting sports. Youth shooting sports is just a venue. Of course, the kids fall in love with it. They have fun. They develop friendships, camaraderie, but at the same time, they're developing their character, and so that's why it's very important to us what we do and funding them long term. So we do this through an endowment program. Right now, we have $183 million in endowments, and that money is invested at Goldman Sachs. And what happens is, just in a nutshell, the way it works is a donation gets sent to a team. They come into us. So you go to our website, you select one of the 2,800 teams that's out there, and let's say you put in $100. That's 100% of that $100 is going to go to that team. Nothing's taken out for operations. We're funded operationally through other avenues. So 100% goes to it. It's tax deductible, and then we match it. So the match will vary month to month. We have $160,000 a month that we use for matching incoming donations. So sometimes it's a little under $1, sometimes it's a little over $1, but on average, let's call it $1. So you'll put in, let's say in this example, $100. 100% goes to it, to your team that you've chosen. We will match it, and then that's invested and gets earnings, and those earnings go right back into that fund. So we have teams with over $1 million in their endowment accounts. So we've been asked, why we just don't take the money and throw it in their endowment accounts, let them have it. And the answer is we help those that help themselves. We are looking to develop character, as we said before. We want them to have a vested interest. So we ask them to fundraise for themselves. We help them do that through some toolkits and programs and just other assistance. But at the end of the day, it's about them sending their own funds into their account, which then we match. On top of the match, we also give additional money for incentives and this sort of thing. On the fundraising side, though, we help them along those lines with what we call product grants. So anybody with an endowment account, they go on our website, they look at a long list of guns, optics, other outdoor equipment, electronics, and they say, I want one of those, one of those, one of those. Can you send them to me? We'll package them up and we'll send them to them. shipping on us, doesn't cost the team anything, and then they'll use them in a raffle or sweepstakes or some sort of fundraising event. And we just ask that they return a certain amount of the money they make to their endowment. So so we give them the products to raise money with. They send a portion of that money back to their endowment. We match it. We give incentives, and it's all tax deductible to the team. Additionally, they get to keep any money above that fundraising level that they agreed to for local expenses. So clearly, they get money for immediate expenses, but they also are funding their team in perpetuity. So an endowment program basically used by universities, museums, other large foundations to make sure that they're around forever. And that's our goal, is to make sure that these teams are around shooting forever. So in a nutshell, that's kind of how this program works. So 2,800 right now use shooting teams. The endowments, all disciplines, whether it's shotgun, action rifle, black powder, doesn't matter. Not archery, it's all firearms, but all disciplines of firearm shooting in all 50 states. Additionally, we have 65 state national youth shooting organizations with endowments. Triple SF, we had been on here earlier. His organization has endowments, ATA, ACUI, a lot of other organizations out there. They have these endowments, and their grants they get once a year, which is a 5% of their endowment, helps them put on these competitions that these kids get to go shoot at. The individual teams, they use their annual grants. Again, they get a grant once a year. They use it for offset the cost of ammo, uniforms, entry fees, transportation, all that sort of thing. And it helps kids that might be fiscally challenged to be able to shoot. So take great pride in being able to provide that assistance. Right now, we paid over $33 million worth of grants to date. We paid $6 million last year alone, and we will surpass that easily this year. And we've also given away $7 million in product grants to assist them in their fundraising. I might add that $7 million turned into $30 million between local money that they kept locally and the money that they returned into their endowments. So in a high level nutshell, that's kind of the way that works. So actually, Nephi and Peter kind of already hit on this, and I was actually very happy to hear them. One thing that I hear when I talk to potential sponsors or others, they say, "Oh, well, I only want to donate to hunter causes or conservation." And the reality is Peter and Nephi mentioned that 80% of all PR dollars come from non-hunters. The non-hunters being self-defense purchases, but mostly shooting sports. So, and of that shooting sports category, there's over 4.5 million youth shooters in the U.S. 4.5 million of them, and they spend over $1.8 billion a year on firearms, ammo, accessories. And that money obviously creates excise tax, which goes directly into conservation and hunting. So I would argue that youth target shooters are the key to preserving our industry and our nation's conservation programs. So if we really hope that if any of us leave this program today, that's the big thing to remember, is that the youth are the pipeline, which is what R3 is all about. But it's not just those that are that starting out in hunting. Most of them are starting out in youth shooting sports. Even if they don't go into hunting, they're creating the dollars that support hunting and conservation. And the fact is most youth hunters start out as target shooters, recreational shooters. So what I want to spend a couple minutes on was a couple of new programs we've just rolled out this year. First one is a coach training grant program. So right now, we have about $250,000 available Every youth needs a coach to teach them how to shoot. So they're not going to get an opportunity to shoot if they don't have someone to teach them, to oversee their safety, and to help them understand what they can do with that firearm. So we've created this coach training grant program. Right now it's $250,000 available. We just rolled it out, said at the beginning of this year, not with much fanfare because we've gotten quite a bit of interest, shall we say. Actually, you'll see a news release here in the next week or so highlighting how much money was given away. These are competitive grants, and they're only used to certify new coaches. So level 1, entry beginner, or if you're already a coach, teaching you to be a trainer. Great example of a program that this grant can be used for is what Ben was talking about earlier, the SSF coach training program. This works perfect for that. So in RA level 1 and others that are out there, and even if a state organization has their own coach training program, that can work as well. The idea is to get more qualified coaches on the line with the kids so that they can shoot safely. So as I said, that will be rolling out. Well, it's already rolled out, excuse me, but you'll see a news release on the awarded grants here pretty soon. We also have rolled out the range development grant program. So basically, obviously a kid needs somebody to teach them, but they need a place to shoot. And I mean, this rolls right into what Peter was saying earlier. I mean, tearing down ranges, it's hard for me to believe. But the ranges we have out there, a lot of them are in a state of disrepair. They have low capacity. Excuse me, they have bottlenecked capacity. And, you know, we want to try to fix that. So we've created this grant program. And the intent of that is to free up or open up those bottlenecks to add additional parts of a range. For example, if a range always has their trap fields full and they need to add another trap field, here's a great opportunity to do that. Or they can't shoot at night, so they can add lights. Infrastructure, you know, the bathrooms don't work, they don't have enough parking, things of that nature. Anything to improve not just the experience, but the capacity, and for them to actually be able to get more youth on the field shooting. This is geared towards ranges that are supporting not just youth shooting sports, but teams that have an endowment program with us. It's actually the team that applies for it on behalf of their range. It's telling us that, hey, this is where we have to practice, but these are the problems that we have. So they submit the application, and we go through it and try to allocate the funds where we think the best be suited to make an impact. Right now we have $500,000 available. We just closed out the application deadline, and we are currently going through them. $500,000 available, almost $4 million of applications. This is a huge undertaking, actually, and this was very little fanfare. But that just shows you, again, to highlight Peter's point, it just tells you how much demand these ranges are in and how much work that they need. So we'll point out that you can't build a new range with it. So you can't go to your backyard and build a range. Yeah, so you just can't build a new one. It has to be an existing range. So here you can kind of see here what the regulations for the grant is. I'm sure you can understand why we've got to put some pretty strict guidelines on it. But you know, minimum grants $2,500. Let's just say you need some new throwers on your trap field, up to $75,000 to actually construct a new range. It can't be over 50% of the total budget. So if you've got $100,000 total expense of your budget, the most we're going to pay is $50,000. You've got to be able to tell us where you can get the rest of the money. You've got to finish the project within 9 months. As I said before, the facility needs to be used by an endowment holder, although I'm going to give a waiver to that here in just a minute. Can't build a new facility or purchase new land with it. Must be, put towards youth shooting sports capacity. You've got to provide us a budget and proof of the cost. Updates are required along the way, and any funds that aren't used need to be returned. So anyway, that's the program. We feel it's going to be a big help to a lot of ranges out there. And as I said, this is our first year doing it. But with that said, almost $4 million worth of requests for a $500,000 available fund. So there's going to be a lot of disappointed ranges, which I'm sad about, but I am happy about the turnout. And I think we will make a difference with our $500,000 anyway. So the exception to this is for those programs that, those groups that are conservation groups or state groups that build their own public target shooting facilities, that they're using the federal excise tax dollars to fund the project. So often, these guys are using R3 conservation grants from the Wildlife Restoration Act, and they get 90% of the range. Well, that's very helpful, but they have to come up with the other 10% on their own, and a lot of them just don't have the dollars to do it. So we decided to open this up to provide that 10% down payment, if you will, to help them qualify for that 90% grant. So the other requirements I laid out still apply, but the fact is that we know a lot of teams and kids practice on public ranges, and this is a way for us to help support those ranges. So any conservation group or wildlife agency that actually builds these ranges and owns and operates them, they're trying to improve them, we can help provide that 10%. And there's a special form on our website. So all of these things, I've gone through this very quickly, but the bottom line is that all the information is on our website along with everything else. You can research it there. Also, all of our teammates are out there too with contact information. Any of them can answer any questions you have. Just give them a call or send them an email. And ultimately, that's it. I hope I didn't go too long, Swanee, but that's it. Midway USA Foundation in a nutshell.
Thanks, Scott. I really appreciate it. That's exciting, that exception about the 10%. So we're going to open it up to questions. We're going to bring Peter back on screen. Peter, if you will. There we go. Let's see here. Make sure we get it all straightened out. All right. And we are good to go for some questions. So Haley dropped a link in the chat for everybody, a link to Peter's video that was requested. Hank Forster of the National Deer Association mentioned that, the updated ranges that y'all are talking about, Peter, are a great resource for hosting Learn to Hunt programs too. So the more range access that's out there, the better off the Learn to Hunt programs are going to be as well.
Yeah, so on these new facilities, we've built classrooms. We build a wet lab. We want to integrate people that are coming for the hunting purpose, while also sending that message out that we still are trying to provide that support system for people that want to try hunting. At the same token that we're recognizing that shooters need some of that same R3 purpose to learn how to shoot, these new gun owners. So through classrooms and a wet lab, we hope to be that one-stop education shop.
Great. We've got a question from Ben Burka for Scott. He says, Scott, can you please explain how many of the state agencies and NGOs here can take advantage of or apply for the coach training grants to help put on Scholastic Shooting Sports Foundation basic coach education training to trainer events? Do they need to apply through or with an organizational endowment holder?
So any of our 60, 65, 68 now, I think, organizations, they're state and national organizations. And just to be clear, what these organizations are, they are either completely, uniquely dedicated to youth shooting sports, or they have an official section of their organization that's dedicated to youth shooting sports. So we recognize them as a partner that, based on that, they are able to create an endowment because, and we want to help fund these organizations because they help youth shooting sports. So if they have that designation, basically they can apply for coach training grants, and they often will do it within what we say their footprint. Let's say, for example, if there is a organization that serves the state of Missouri, well, their footprint are all the teams within Missouri, and ideally they would be talking to these teams saying, hey, who needs new coaches? Let's say they say, well, there's 50, within our state, we need 50 new coaches, or have a request for 50 new coaches. That organization would then submit the one application to us for those 50 coaches. It's competitive, but hopefully it would be approved, and then they would receive the funds that they requested, up to $5,000 to fund those 50 coaches. And they have to tell us what vehicle they're going to use to certify them. Is it through the NRA? Is it through SSF? Is it through any of the others that are nationally recognized? And again, we do recognize that sometimes those don't quite work out. If there's a state agency that's developed their own curriculum, so that these coaches can actually coach within their own state, and it's a competitive curriculum, if you will, compared to some of the others out there, we would accept that as well. We want to get more coaches out there, and we want to get more train-the-trainers out there as well. Hope, does that answer the question?
I think it does. Ben can
Okay.
clue us in to make sure.
He knows my number. He can call me.
All right, we have one question that was asked earlier from Marisa down in Alabama. Peter, she was curious, how many staff ranges do you have in Ohio?
So we have 5 staff ranges, and we used to only have about 2 or 3 staff members per range, and we've expanded that to up to 5, and we're hiring educators now rather than just range masters, so to speak. So we're keeping that safety component while also focusing on the customer experience. The customer experience at our ranges is important. So we're trying to mirror our staff to meet that.
Okay, great. Well, I really appreciate both of you jumping on here, taking the time today to do these presentations. I learned a lot. We're going to stick to our schedule. If y'all have any follow-up questions, feel free to send them to me, and I'll get them to Peter and Scott, or reach out to them directly. But we are going to move right into the multi-state conservation grant program with that. So Peter, Scott, thanks once again. Haley, if you'll tee us up.